It's my pleasure to introduce our final speaker for the day, a true leader in nursing informatics. She currently serves as the Vice President and Chief Nursing Information Officer at Johns Hopkins Health System, bringing over a decade of expertise in healthcare technology. She has held key leadership roles at Harris Health System and Mercy Medical Center, and she is also a faculty associate at the University of Maryland School of Nursing. In addition, she holds a doctorate in nursing practice in nursing informatics. Today, she'll be discussing the impact of technology and artificial intelligence on nursing-sensitive indicators and patient outcomes. Please join me in welcoming Dr. April Saathoff.
Hello, Dr. April. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, and it's afternoon for us.
Good morning and afternoon. If I would have planned this a little bit better, I was actually just in Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks ago at another conference, and I could have matched these dates up a little bit better. It would have been lovely to share this day with you in person, but super excited to be here with you, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you also, Doctor. Can you please share your presentation?
Great. So as already mentioned, my name is April Saathoff, and I'm the Chief Nursing Information Officer from Johns Hopkins Health System. So that means I basically oversee clinical informatics, health IT education, as well as nursing quality in my role for the health system, which makes this presentation extra fun for me because it's a blend of all of those things together. And I'm happy to share with you the latest in what's going on for us. So this essentially is Johns Hopkins Medicine. We are 6 hospitals across Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Florida, including 2 children's specific centers. And we have a total of 2,500 patient beds and over 40,000 employees in our health system. These are the topics of what I'm going to be discussing with you today, specifically what kinds of artificial intelligence we're starting to see related to nursing functions and also considerations related to this. A lot of my examples today are from Johns Hopkins, but for specific nursing sensitive indicators where we might not be doing very much in particular, what I have done is taken a good look at the literature and can share some of the exciting advancements that we're starting to see in those areas as well. So I'm sure you've heard a lot today about definitions related to artificial intelligence, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on this particular slide, but these are definitely some of the kinds of AI that we're seeing in healthcare today. We've got the deep learning and neural networks that we've heard a lot about today in that machine learning category. Obviously, this is analyzing large amounts of information, identifying patterns, making predictions. So we see this in our predictive models. Some examples of that I know we've heard already about today: sepsis, deterioration indexes, falls predictive models. So all of those obviously will fall within that category. And then we have the branch here seen in green, which is the cognitive services. These are going to be the AI applications that simulate human functionality. So examples like this include computer vision, which analyzes images and videos to identify objects. We've got some examples of that in here today. Or speech intelligence, which converts voice into text. Or language processing, which understands and can generate text from language as well. We also have robotics, which we've had some great presentations about that today. This obviously combines more than one type of artificial intelligence in a way that the robot can carry out specific tasks. And then we also have generative AI on this slide, which is also full of hype, including ChatGPT, that produces new and novel content from text, images, audio from these large data sets that we have. So just a quick overview and sort of how I like to frame this in my brain when I'm thinking about AI. And then I really liked this quote. It comes specifically from Tom Lowry. He was Microsoft's National Director for AI for Health and Life Sciences for over a decade. And I think what this is important is that it says, as a clinician, health executive, or consumer, it's not necessary to know how artificial intelligence actually works. I think that's a huge and powerful statement, in particular, as we've been kicking off some artificial intelligence committees, setting up governance at Johns Hopkins. I was really surprised that I didn't see more nursing informaticists and nurse clinicians at the table. And so I went back to my team and I said, hey, where are you guys? Why aren't you signing up to be a part of these committees? And the response I commonly got was, well, I don't know a lot about AI. And so the second part of the statement from Tom Lowry here, what is important to understand is what capabilities exist and how to put them to work in service of your mission and goals. This is such a powerful statement. So I explained to my team, I said, you absolutely need to be at the table. We can provide you some foundation and some basics on artificial intelligence, but the true value is your knowledge, your experience, you know, the policies, the workflows, what's possible in our electronic health records, and all of that actually makes you the perfect candidate to be sitting at the table and involved in these discussions. So I always encourage everyone to not be afraid of what's out there with artificial intelligence, and it's part of the learning opportunity to make sure that nursing has a voice at the table. So why do we care about all of this? I know you've heard a lot about the impact of artificial intelligence today. I think for myself, when EHRs were first introduced, the desire was to put all the data we could into them and generate all kinds of reports. So the idea that more was more, right? More data fields, more documentation. We were really excited about what this could do. And now we have so much data that we might not actually be using. It maybe isn't really helping our patients and turning outcomes, and clinicians are burnt out with all the repetitiveness in systems. So we are really trying today to be incredibly thoughtful with what is truly essential to document. I think for me, the realization with the power of the EHR doesn't actually lie in endless reports that we generate after the fact, but in the realization and applying knowledge in advance of any kind of potential negative outcome occurring for the patient, to get ahead of that, to predict these outcomes, to address them early. And that actually empowers us and changes the way that we provide nursing care, which is really exciting. So this shift to a more proactive approach to healthcare results in healthier, more productive lives, where we actually catch these issues early before they start, or at least at the very early stages, so that patients can have the earliest care and the best possible outcomes. We've got so many ways we can capture data now. We've got wearable devices like smartwatches. They can collect data and identify various things, including irregular heart rhythms, sleep apnea, lung disease, stress, or simply that we're not active enough in our everyday lives, which we may not want to know about because that means we have to exercise more. There are also benefits when we start pairing a patient's DNA with some of these study results. For example, tests that can tell a patient which antidepressant or other medications are most effective for them, or which cancer treatments can produce the best outcomes in their particular scenarios. I think artificial intelligence is also uniquely poised to help prevent repetitive tasks that can lead to burnout, which we all know is a significant problem in healthcare today. So in preparing for this discussion, again, I've pulled some data from the work that we're currently doing at Hopkins, as well as what I found in the literature, to discuss some innovative ways that AI is helping to improve patient outcomes and nursing sensitive indicators. A lot of this technology is really in its youth, in its early stages. So I think we have a lot more work to do before we have confident answers about some of these technologies and how they're going to really impact care. But it's fun to think about, and definitely wanted to share those with you today. So similar to what Ms. Suarez spoke about today, one of the earliest predictive models that we've seen in electronic health records, and one that Johns Hopkins is also using, is the sepsis predictive model. We moved from a traditional risk scoring tool in the electronic health record into using Epic's predictive model for sepsis, which, similar to what Ms. Suarez mentioned earlier, runs in the background. There's 79 different variables that it's constantly screening. And then for us, it essentially alerts the physician and the nurse that a patient is at risk when it hits a certain threshold. This also places an indicator on our patient lists. And if the provider agrees with the sepsis alert, it also starts a visible timer for key actions like administration of antibiotics. and then pair that with use of smart order sets, as well as checklists in the chart. It helps keep us on track with everything related to sepsis care. And so in particular for Hopkins, this is the one of the key results we've seen is that there's been increase in our compliance within 1 hour from the order time to the time of antibiotics given to the patient, which is obviously time is key when you're dealing with sepsis. And so we want to make sure we stay ahead of this as much as possible. In addition to this, we're talking about future modeling and essentially where we hope to go and our next step in our sepsis journey. One idea we're now discussing is the concept of centralizing all of our sepsis and deterioration alerts so that instead of these alerts going out to hundreds of different providers, they will essentially get routed to a small, well-trained group of critical care staff who will then be responsible for evaluating the alerts to determine if it's a real threat and then take fast action on it. Health systems in the United States that have deployed this type of model have reduced codes by 30%, have reduced rapid response calls by 40%, increased rapid response calls by 40%, decreased their sepsis mortality rates, and also can recognize sepsis significantly earlier. So we are hoping and working on standing this up and operationalizing this now and hoping to see some of those benefits that we've seen from our peers in this space in particular. The next nursing sensitive indicator I want to discuss with you is pressure injury management. As I was going through the most common nursing sensitive indicators, one thing I see commonly in the literature is the need to expand the use of machine learning techniques to develop more sensitive predictions. We've got a lot of these tools out there that we've been using forever. For pressure injuries in particular, one tool that stands out is the Braden risk score and set of interventions. And a lot of these tools, while they are very helpful at identifying patients that may have risk, they often give high false positive rates as well. So then you're putting money and time, interventions onto patients to treat them because they show up as being high risk, but in reality, they may not be a true indicator of a patient that may have a particular condition or issue. So we want to try to narrow that signal in to reduce the noise and to really make sure that we have the most accurate models to provide the best care. So this is just one example of where we see the opportunity to incorporate additional risk factors, additional analysis based on our actual patient data from our population to identify the best risk model that we can deploy to predict in this space. So we've got a lot of work yet to do in particular here. So this slide in particular, I thought was really interesting. Some incredibly new but promising technology I came across was a case study about a critically ill patient that had a non-healing pressure injury. This patient in particular was 79 years old, bedridden following a stroke, and had a stage 4 pressure injury that with traditional methods of treatment had not improved after 5.5 months of care. So they, the long-term care facility where they had this patient, they placed the patient on a new AI mattress, which is capable of reading and responding to the patient's pressure points. And so on the left-hand side of the screen here, you see the areas that are red, highlighted in red. That was the first reading that the mattress took, and it identified those hot spots for the patient, and then immediately responded by adjusting air in small pockets around those particular areas to give you a better image seen on the right-hand side of the screen. So it constantly assesses and readjusts the pressure for these patients over time. And what they actually found in particular for this patient was within 4 weeks, the pressure injury was reduced to a stage 3. And it also actually helped improve the patient's eczema that was all over their body. It resolved within the 4 weeks. And so there's hope that with this kind of technology, it can assist in wounds that are resistant to normal treatment methods. So again, very, very new technology, not seeing a ton out there in the literature about this, but it's really exciting to see how AI can be paired with even mattresses to help provide better care for our patients. So kind of sticking within this theme of wounds and skin, you have an example here of where AI is showing up in wearable patient sensors. This is one particular example of a sensor that's been placed on the patient's chest, and it can detect what position the patient is in and when they were last turned. And this information is saved in a third-party system outside of the electronic health record. So this technology showed improvements in a staff's compliance with turning protocols to help ensure that we're doing all that we can to prevent had pressure injuries. And but the one challenge that I note with this is that this technology at this point in time was not capable of being integrated within the electronic health record. Again, it was that third-party system. And I think it'll be really challenging to have so many disparate, separate systems. So we have to keep challenging these kinds of companies and our electronic health record vendors to allow for incorporation of these types of technologies into existing pathways and workflows for nursing so that we actually gain the full value and benefit of this for nursing. Something else that's really cool that kind of goes along with the trend of automation of listening and automation of documentation from that. We also have automation of documentation that is possible from wound images. And so this is actually in development from a number of groups. This particular company is called Tissue Analytics here, but it's also being developed right now through Microsoft. And it's the ability to upload the image of a wound within the electronic health record, and then it's immediately translated into documentation for the nurse. So the nice thing about this is that in early testing, these systems have shown increased accuracy of wound measurements and faster documentation times by over 50%. I know that we're actually looking for a solution like this right now at Johns Hopkins. And the idea is that with a lot of new nurses, it just helps with presenting and standardizing some documentation and helping to train nurses in real time as well based on what they see. Again, with any of these technologies, you have to still have the nurse as co-pilot, so to speak. So they have to be reviewing the documentation elements that are presented from the image and actually agreeing, editing, disagreeing prior to this being saved in the record. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and take a look at what artificial intelligence exists for falls reduction. The literature again suggests that a predictive model for prediction of falls can be enhanced with better screening tools that are augmented through machine learning. So lots of themes of this in the literature. Again, we've got these risk tools that everyone's using. Morse, Hendricks, Johns Hopkins tool is the JFRAT tool for predicting falls risk. And again, really comparing those tools and analyzing your actual patient population data by the use of data scientists, mathematicians, to really understand what other factors we might be missing that help us better predict falls in our particular population. So I think similar to what we heard earlier, Ms. Suarez talked about this in her presentation. Another form of AI that can be helpful related to falls is computer vision. You can see some de-identified images here, in particular from a computer vision tool. Utilizing models that identify when a patient is moving can alert remote telehealth providers like sitters to allow for fast redirection of patients who are attempting to move that might be missed by someone who's watching multiple patients at once. In particular, we talked to a hospital, health system, Oxnard Health in Louisiana, and they actually found that they could increase the number of patients that their telesitters were watching from 16 up to 40 with use of this technology that helps alert those watching which patients were actually moving around. So again, just making things more efficient while not compromising on any of the safety components, very important in this space. One huge project for Johns Hopkins right now is virtual nursing, and we are in the plan of rolling this out over the course of the next year into 4 of our hospitals in around 200 beds, particularly in our med-surg areas. And as you can see in the image here, the virtual nurse is an additional member of the care team. They work remotely off of the patient unit in a separate space. They use sophisticated cameras that have extensive zoom capabilities and night vision technology so that they can see in the rooms at night. And they also have a sound bar and very sophisticated speakers in the patient room as well. These cameras are very sophisticated. They can literally zoom in to detect and have the nurse grade the pupil size of the patient. The virtual nurse can actually read tiny medication vials that the bedside nurse may hold up in front of the camera so that they can actually be a co-signer or dual medication checker. So very, very sophisticated technology. And the cameras are actually also able to announce when the nurse is entering the room with audible doorbell sounds. And actually the nurse has the opportunity to ask the patient before any cameras are turned to face the patient, any camera covers open up to actually look at the patient. They can request permission. Is this a good time to come in the room so that there are some elements of privacy? built into those, which was important to our patient population when we spoke with them. Obviously, the virtual nurse will be taking on administrative tasks from the bedside nurse, things that are time consuming but capable of doing remotely, like admissions, discharges, education, care planning, and mentoring new nursing staff. And studies have shown robustly that health systems that use this technology report all of these benefits on the screen, which is somewhat amazing. Increased patient and nursing satisfaction, decreased burnout, several improved quality measures, and decreased length of stay and readmission rates. So we're really excited about what this technology will bring to our bedside nurses, in particular, some relief from the high workloads that they're experiencing right now. So interesting, I sort of picked up from Miss Jean's presentation just before mine. She had shown the clip from Dr. Katabi in particular, taking a look at vital signs. The company that we are partnering with for virtual nursing, they actually are working on developing AI technology right now. It's almost like looks sort of like a cone, and it's a sensor, and you implement that sensor similar to where the cameras are, and it actually can detect an entire set of vital signs for the patient, including blood pressure, simply from using that imagery in the patient's room. And so from the minute that patient gets in the bed, it can be evaluating them. And then the minute that the patient starts heading in the wrong direction or has some changes in their vital signs, it can actually alert care providers. So we're excited to see where that technology goes, because that, I feel like, is another piece of the puzzle that we could play into our work with sepsis and deterioration, which is exciting. Another area we're delving more into at Hopkins is the calculations of workload scores for nurses. This is different from an acuity score. It's more of a score of the amount of work that the patient may require in particular. For example, a new admission to a unit is going to require additional documentation, additional work to get them established as a patient and set up on the unit. And so that patient correspondingly would have a higher nursing workload score. We are developing these workload scores by specialty area. So it is very specific to the exact type of patient and the exact type of area where the patient is going to be treated. And the goal then is so that we can create patient assignments that are more balanced across all of our units. So these scores will also then allow for the beginning of the next shift and next day predictions for staffing to help make sure that we're aware and staying on top of that. And then obviously the units can better be prepared for the demands of upcoming shifts. Another fun project that we've been working on more in our ambulatory areas, working with our current electronic health record vendor to categorize the types of in-basket or email type messages that providers are getting in order to more accurately route messages to providers so the right people can address them earlier. So here you can see in the categories column to the right, we've got messages that are now being classified as either clinical or administrative type messages. We address the clinical messages by use of licensed clinicians who can answer those kinds of messages. And what we're finding is that we're getting to potential issues a lot earlier and being able to put the patient on the right path, whether they need to come in and be seen, set up a telehealth visit. So this is just helping us work more efficiently and help reduce the feelings of burnout in our providers. Another fun space that we have been looking at and some interesting lessons learned here for us is actually augmented response technology, which we are calling ART. Again, this is something we're partnering with our electronic health record vendor for. And we have this deployed to 70 physician users right now in primary care. And this technology essentially analyzes patient messages and drafts a response to the patient that the provider sees and can edit or send quickly to the patient. This technology has found, again, similar to the categorization of the messages, it significantly reduces the feelings of burnout in our clinicians. And then I think the interesting thing about this in particular for nursing was we built the prompts for these messages and these responses based on providers. And so then when we said, hey, this could be something cool that we turn on for nursing as well, when we did actually stand this up for nursing, what we found was that because the model had been trained on provider answers, the drafts that were coming to us as nursing were written in the provider voice, which makes sense, which was giving patients perhaps medical advice. Nurses were concerned that they didn't know where the recommendations were coming from. And so we've actually had to put a pause on pushing this out to nursing. And now we have a dedicated team of nurses that's evaluating these messages and helping to re-engineer the prompts that create these drafts in the system so that the technology can be useful, but delivered in the nursing voice, and that we're obviously staying within our scope of practice. So I think that was a good lesson for us. Again, we have to pilot these tools, we have to go slow, and we have to make sure that all the right types of clinicians are at the table to make sure that it's meeting the needs of everyone. I know a lot of people have talked about this today, as well as what Ms. Jean mentioned on her session just before mine. This is another technology that I'm also very excited about. We've got vendors like Abridge, Nuance, and Microsoft are partnering to expand this technology, where again, the nurse would open up his or her smartphone in the patient room, start a dialogue with the patient. The ambient listening is then translated into actual documentation. And so what we're finding here is that this is very new technology. It's being trialed in development at a few sites in the United States right now by early adopters. We are hoping to also then partner with one of these groups and do some testing and development work of our own in this space, because I think it has a lot of potential to help with burnout for nursing. And I just saw a presentation by one of the early adopters. They said that nurses really love this, that they're using it a lot for the short form documentation, like vital signs, INO, ADL's documentation, but there's still some work that needs to be had, in particular mapping for longer assessments like the head to toe. But it shows a lot of promise, and there's a lot of excitement about this for sure. And then finally, the last item that we're taking a look at right now is care plan automation. Basically, we are trying to automate our care plan process as much as possible. Care plans are often viewed as redundant and feel tedious for our staff. So we're redesigning the workflows to automate key problems being added, or to prompt the nurse if it's appropriate to add something. And then ensuring that documentation occurs within the normal nursing workflows, so that we're not asking them to go above and beyond, go to some different module to do any kind of documentation, that it's all embedded within their work and it's not seen as duplicate documentation. Then we plan on using reports to pull all this together so that we have a regulatory visit. We can actually show these are the problems, this is our documentation, this is how we're meeting the needs for the patient. And then something really cool that's also coming from our electronic health record vendor is an AI-generated end-of-shift care plan summary note that again is written in the voice of the nurse and then becomes integrated within the patient's chart that other care providers can see, that helps to accurately summarize what's happening and tell the story of the patient. So important considerations. This is my final slide. Just want to mention about AI in nursing in particular. This technology is not one that we've seen like other things we implement in informatics, where we turn it on and just leave it unwatched. It needs a clinician to act as a supervisor to ensure that the results that are being produced are expected, and then edit models and change things as we go. I think AI can also be expensive. We've heard that through a lot of sessions today. So instead of considering every possible vendor that has options, it makes sense to actually use vendors that are well established in the AI field. A good place to start is always your current electronic health record vendor. And also pair the AI investments, as we heard from others today, with the strategic priorities of the organization to make sure that you're really investing in the right places to drive the results that you hope for your patient population. I think as we deploy and invest in AI, we need to take time to share results with others. This is such a new field. We have to disseminate this information so we can learn and grow together and understand the true value of the technology. And we need to go slow, implement pilots, evaluate results, and really tread carefully in this space, like we've learned from some of our examples with our automated email responses to patients, to make sure that we know how this is going to work before we start to large scale deploy this to others. So AI does have the ability to revolutionize the way we provide nursing care to our patients, and we need to rethink the ways that we've been doing things for the several past decades and be open to adopt new ways of thinking or ways to adapt these tools, which can dramatically increase efficiency and the quality of care that we're providing to our patients. One recommendation of mine, if you're looking to get started with AI, get out there and start playing with some of these tools that are out there. Microsoft has a downloadable tool called Copilot. I'm sure many of you you are already familiar with that. Personally, I've taken that and downloaded it, and I've started to use it in my everyday life, whether it's typing up statements for a performance appraisal for someone, or helping to generate an essay or other content like that. I've played with it actually when I was looking at designing this very PowerPoint. Give me a PowerPoint template, generate some PowerPoint slides or an agenda or topics. So the more that you play with this in your everyday life, you start to understand more about how this technology works. I would also suggest you can Google Tom Lowry, the book who I mentioned earlier in here. He's got some great videos on YouTube. He's also a great speaker. He goes to a lot of national conferences. So if you have the opportunity to see him, he's really easy to understand and really has a good lens on healthcare, in particular with AI. And then Google has some free training modules available on AI. They're short, they're focused, a little bit more on the technical side, but I've watched those as well, and it's provided me a good foundation on what AI is that we can then apply to healthcare. Mentioned earlier, if you want to get started with AI solutions, reach out to your electronic health record vendor. Usually there are models, things that they're in development. We've asked in several cases with ours, hey, can we be early adopters of this? Can we work with you to pilot some of these tools as they get out there? Which can be helpful to understand how they work. And then also to reach out to companies that are trusted providers. We recently have developed a strategic partnership with Microsoft so that they can help us with some of their tools with AI. They're a known vendor in the space, so there's confidence that they're not going to use data incorrectly. And so it's good to partner with vendors like that have established and have some experience in the AI industry in particular. And then consider the impact of hiring or utilizing data scientist or mathematician roles in your organization can provide. I've worked at several organizations where data scientists are the key to understanding if a model is running correctly, where to set the thresholds for alerts and reminders. And I think these are roles that we're going to see continue to expand because they can really provide us with help and value in understanding how to utilize this technology more efficiently. So that is it. I know that was a huge crash course, and happy to engage any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. April, for a very insightful presentation. Now, check with our audience if we have questions for Dr. April. No questions. Thank you so much, Dr. April, and I hope you can stay a little bit longer with us as we head to our closing program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.